Hi everyone, I'm Nick Olivo, and today we're looking at the Delta Green character sheet for Roll20. Now, if you're not familiar with Delta Green, it's a Lovecraftian horror game where players take on the role of agents who work for a clandestine government agency called Delta Green, and then they go off on operations and fight the mythos. So the idea behind this video is if you're a game master, in Delta Green that's a handler, who has a new player, or maybe just a player who is new to Delta Green on Roll20, this video will show them where everything lives on their character sheet and how it works, so that when game night rolls around, they'll be able to navigate their character sheet with confidence. Now, I'll drop a link down in the video description with a timestamp so you can just share that link and it will take the player right to the spot in the video where we begin talking about the character sheet, and then they can watch that and be good to go. Before we dive in, I'd just like to thank Roll20 for sponsoring this video. Alright, so let's get you acquainted with your character sheet. And in this video, I'm going to show you where everything lives on your sheet, how to make attacks and dodges in combat, how to track your sanity and your hit points, as well as a few other things along the way. We're not going to cover every possible rule and scenario in here, but by the time you're done watching, you should have a really good feel for where everything is on your character sheet and how it works. Let's dive in. Now you probably already know that you can access your character sheet by going to the Journal tab in Roll20 and then clicking on your character's name. But you can also open your character sheet by holding down the Alt key while double-clicking on your character's token. And now that we've got our sheet open, we'll learn our way around by going through the roles that our handler will ask us to make as part of a Delta Green operation. So let's start out with skill checks. In our example, Special Agent Cornwell is going through this apartment looking for clues about a missing girl. So our handler will ask us to make a search roll to see if we find anything. All of your skills are located down here on the sheet in alphabetical order. So we're going to find search and we'll click on it. When we do, we get a pop-up asking us if there's a modifier that needs to be applied to our roll. And depending on what's happening at that moment in the game, our handler may determine if there are circumstances that help or hinder our efforts to search, and by how much. For example, maybe our agent has a special blacklight flashlight that they're using to look for fingerprints or footprints. That would give a bonus. If we were searching for those footprints outside while it was raining, then that may incur a penalty because evidence is being washed away. Our handler will tell us if there's a bonus or penalty that needs to be applied and how much of one, so we can just choose the appropriate one from the dropdown and then click submit. If there's no modifier, then just click submit and the results will appear over here in chat. So what does this mean and how does it know if this was a failure or a success? Well, the way skills work in Delta Green is you roll a D100 and you're trying to roll a number less than or equal to the value to the right of the skill's name. So we'd need to roll a 20 or lower in order to make a successful search. I've just made a few more rolls here and you can see that my search roll when it was over 20 is a failure. When it was under 20, we had a success. And then I made a few human intelligence checks. This is how you perceive people and figure out kind of what they're up to based on their body language and how they're conversing with you. And you can see that when my roll is lower than my skill, in this case lower than 80, it's successful. And when it's above 80, it's a failure. But I also want to mention that if you roll a natural 1, or if the numbers that are on your dice match, so like in this example here, I rolled 2 7s, giving me a 77%, then that is considered a critical success, which means not only did you succeed, but you did so spectacularly well. Using human intelligence, we were able to glean additional information about this person based on their facial tic or based on kind of how they were holding themselves. That's how good this success was. On the other hand, if you roll a natural 100, or if the numbers on your dice match and it's above your skill level, so for example, I rolled an 88 or a 99 or a 100, then those are considered fumbles. And then not only did you fail, but you did so spectacularly. And it's up to your handler to decide what that means. Maybe you get distracted and take a penalty to your next action. Maybe you become exhausted with the mental effort of trying to do whatever it is you're up to. Whatever it is, it won't be good. Now in Delta Green, you learn by failing. So when you fail to make a successful skill check, tick the box to the left of the skill's name. That means you'll have an opportunity to improve that skill at the end of the operation. And if your character picks up a new skill, say they learn how to speak another language, you can add that to your skill list by clicking on this plus icon, entering the name of the skill and the value for it, and you're good to go. Additionally, your agent may receive special training, like in lockpicking or scuba diving. If that's the case, scroll down here, click the plus icon, enter the special training name, and the skill that's used when you roll it. A list of special training examples and the skills they use can be found in the Agent's Handbook. And if you don't have a copy of that, I'll drop a link to where you can purchase it down in the video description. So that's skill rolls. Let's move on to combat. Our agent has encountered this hooded killer and is about to get into a fight. To determine who goes first, our handler will ask us what our dexterity score is. You can find that here on your character sheet, and in our example, our agent's dexterity is 11. The hooded killer's dexterity is a 17, so they'll go first. Okay, so my handler has opened up the turn order window here so we can see the order in which each character will take their turn, and the hooded killer is going to attack my agent with their knife. So they're going to make an attack roll. It will post over in chat. We can see here that they rolled a 39 out of a 75, so that was successful. And now my agent has a choice. He can either try to dodge this attack, or he can fight back. If we want to dodge, dodging is listed in your skills section. So just scroll down here and then click the dodge button, and that will make the dodge roll. If you choose to fight back, all of your attacks are listed down here in the equipment section. And in an up-close and personal fight like this, we can either use unarmed strikes or we can use melee weapons. So I'm going to have my agent use his pistol butt to try and crack the killer over the head. To make a roll, all you need to do is click on this little button to the right of the attack's name. And then just like with skills, you'll be prompted if there are modifiers that help or hinder you in these circumstances. For purposes here, we're just going to make it a straight roll and click submit. Okay, and now we can see here that we failed our fight back roll. So the hooded killer is going to deal damage to us, and the amount of damage that they're dealing is 3 points of damage. And we also have this armor piercing value here. If you look in your equipment section, it will tell you if you have any equipment that provides armor. In this case, Agent Cornwell is wearing a Kevlar vest that gives him 3 points of armor. However, the hooded killer's knife deals 3 points of armor piercing damage, which means it bypasses the 3 points of armor, and Agent Cornwell is going to take all 3 points of damage. Now, you can edit your hit points by coming up here and just reducing the value from 12 down to 9, or, put these back, you can also reduce it right from your character's token. In this example here, the 12 is the character's hit points. I can just say -3, and that will reduce my hit points as well. In situations where you've made an attack roll and it was successful, so for example here, I've had my agent attack with his 9mm pistol, taking a shot at the hooded killer, and it is successful, then you can roll damage just by clicking on the button to the right of the word damage here in chat. And that will display the amount of damage that was rolled as a result of this attack. Now, during the course of our operation, we may find a new weapon, say a submachine gun. To add a new weapon to your sheet, click the plus icon right here, and that gives you a new blank row. Then your handler can give you the details to fill in here. So my handler has popped up this handout that gives me sample damage rolls for various weapons, and so I can fill in the submachine gun here. That's going to use my firearms skill, which is a 50. And you'll notice that unlike some of the other weapons here, the submachine gun does not have a damage die listing. Instead, it has a lethality rating, which is 10% with a 1 meter kill radius. This means that there is a chance that this weapon is just going to flat out kill an opponent, or potentially multiple opponents, depending on the weapon, outright. So if you have a weapon like that, what you're going to do is jump back into chat. We'll make our attack roll, and let's give ourselves a really good chance of hitting here. And here we can see, yes, we were successful. We rolled under our skill value. Okay, and now instead of rolling damage, what we're going to do is roll lethality. So we're going to click on the 10% button here. And when we look at our results, if the number that we rolled is lower than or equal to the submachine gun's lethality rating, we would have flat out just killed our opponent. But because we rolled higher than the lethality rating, what we do is add these two numbers together, add the 3 and the 1 together, and we ultimately did 4 points of damage to our target. Now, before you get too excited about how powerful weapons with lethality are, know that if a target is hiding behind cover, they aren't automatically killed. And neither are entities that are huge in size, so if they're the size of a rhino or an elephant. Plus, certain transcendent entities, like mythos creatures, are immune to bullets, so a machine gun is going to do you absolutely no good against the King in Yellow or Cthulhu. And one final thing to mention about combat is, just like with skill checks, there are critical successes and fumbles. A critical success will deal double damage on the attack roll, and a fumble will cause something to go wrong. Maybe you sprain your wrist if you're throwing an unarmed strike, or you break the butt of your gun as you try to knock somebody out with it. So, this being a Lovecraft game, let's talk about sanity. Your sanity in Delta Green is threatened by 3 forces: violence, helplessness, and the unnatural. Anytime you enter a fight, anytime you witness something terrible happen to one of your fellow agents or the people close to you, or when you run across an inhuman monstrosity, your handler will ask you to make a sanity check. And to do that, you click on the sanity button right here. Just like with attacks and skills, there are modifiers that may help or hinder you, but let's just make a straight roll here. And so here we can see that we succeeded on our sanity check. But if I roll and I fail, then I'm going to lose sanity points. And my handler will make a die roll and will tell me how much sanity I've lost. And so in this example, I can see that I have lost 4 sanity points. So what I'm going to do is deduct those from my current sanity right here, and now I only have 56 sanity remaining. So what this means is your sanity score is going to fluctuate, and the more sanity you lose, the harder it's going to be to make a successful sanity roll. Now, if you lose more than 5 sanity in one go, your agent goes temporarily insane and can only run away from whatever caused their sanity, or lash out at the nearest threat, or submit, where your character basically passes out from shock. So you'll want to talk with your handler to see what's appropriate and how the situation resolves. If your sanity hits the breaking point listed right here, then your agent has acquired a new disorder. That could be a new addiction, a phobia, a fugue. Again, work with your handler to see what's appropriate, and you're going to record that new affliction right here on your character sheet. So let's say that our agent has just lost 5 sanity while they were fighting some kind of demonic platypus monster. They may have acquired anatidaephobia, which is fear that somewhere a duck is watching you. Now, it's possible to reduce the amount of sanity that your character is going to lose by spending these willpower points. So let's say that our agent has failed a sanity roll and is going to lose 8 points of sanity. We want to reduce that. So we're going to roll a d4. So we rolled a 4. We're going to reduce our willpower by that amount. So that takes us down to 9. And then assuming we have at least 1 point of willpower left, which we do, we can reduce the amount of sanity that we would lose by that amount. So in this case, if I was going to lose 8 points of sanity, I've just reduced that by 4, and now I'm going to only lose 4 points of sanity instead. So that brings me down to 52. But I also need to reduce one of my bonds scores by 4 as well. A bond represents the relationships that the agent has with people who are important to them. And the stresses faced by Delta Green agents often wreck the families and friendships that give them strength. So I'm going to choose to reduce the spouse's score here by 4, which brings it down to an 8. And it's up to you as the player to decide how what just happens negatively impacting the agent's relationship. This approach of spending willpower and intentionally damaging a bond can also be used to repress temporary insanity or an acute episode of a disorder. So if our agent has gone temporarily insane and would run away and leave his other agents to be attacked by monsters, roll a d4, we would reduce our willpower by that same amount, and assuming we still have at least 1 willpower point remaining, we would repress the temporary insanity, we'd be able to stay in the fight and keep going. But again, that comes at a cost to one of your agent's bonds, and it's up to you as the player to determine exactly what that looks like. Now, your character can also adapt to sanity loss from violence or helplessness. If your agent loses sanity from a particular type of trauma, but does not go temporarily insane or hit their breaking point, check one of these boxes. So if I've lost sanity due to violence, but I haven't gone insane or hit my breaking point, I can tick this box. If I do that 3 times, then I've become adapted to this particular type of trauma. And what that means is now I will always succeed on sanity rolls for the type of trauma I'm adapted to. So here, my character would be adapted to sanity loss from violence. But there is a cost to becoming hardened like this. Where I'm adapted to violence, that means I'm going to reduce my total charisma score by a d6. So I would roll 1d6, roll to 6, and now my charisma is down to a 6, and I also need to reduce all my bonds by that same amount, because when you get hardened to violence, you become a much colder and harder person. If you become adapted to helplessness, you're going to reduce your POW score by that d6. Now, 2 other things to note here. 1, just because you automatically succeed on a sanity roll doesn't mean you're never going to lose sanity again. Sometimes succeeding on a sanity roll just means you lose less sanity than you normally would. And second, there's no way to get adapted to sanity loss from the unnatural. So no matter how many times you encounter deep ones or Migo, there's no getting used to that. One final thing to mention before we sign off. Sometimes things come down to luck. Do you have a charger that fits the phone you just recovered from that cultist? Did the photo you managed to snap while a monster was erupting out of your buddy's coffee cup come out cleanly enough for you to identify it? In cases like that, your handler will ask you to make a luck roll. Just click the luck button here. Now, luck is always the equivalent of a coin toss. You've got a 50-50 shot. If the number you roll is 50 or lower, you're in luck. If not, well, bummer. So there you have it, an overview of the Delta Green character sheet in Roll20. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing. And until next time, folks, have a great day.